write-ups and stuff reflected that. So I was very fortunate to be an EP sailor, number 1 out of 90 at my command before I checked out. But I never made chief. And even with that number 1 EP, I got looked over for the AWVC board. And I was already starting to apply to this program before that happened, but that just kind of solidified my drive to become commissioned. Okay, so now you know a little bit about me. I'm going to jump into the personal statements. So I'm going to look off screen a little bit towards my PowerPoint. So on the title page, I have my references listed right for this lesson. It's the OpNav 1420.1 Bravo, chapters 2, 6, and appendixes D and E. You all should be very familiar with those references. If you're not, I highly suggest you go through and read and reread multiple times as you're filling out your application, because those references are what tell you how to fill out the application. When I was doing my application, I would fill it out as much as I could, and I thought I was done. I would go back and line by line go with the instructions for each block and make sure that I followed it to the T and made sure that all the requirements were met. Okay, so that's about the references. So moving on, I 100% agree with Lieutenant Abreu about this being the hardest part of the application. Every other part of the application, for the most part, is all demographic type stuff, factual data such as command history. This part is definitely more opinion based, and it takes many revisions to get it right. And even when you think it's right, it's not right. Even when you send it in, you're still thinking about it. I was thinking about it the whole time that after I sent it in till the board, results came out, was everything in my package I could not control up to that point as far as my evals, awards, all that stuff it is what it is. But my personal statement is what I could keep tweaking. So this is definitely invest the time into this personal statement. And that's, makes me really happy to see a large group of individuals here with this lesson, because it's super important. And you guys are doing, getting an awesome opportunity to have this personal feedback. Okay, so before I get into the whys and stuff, I'm kind of doing more of like a factual type approach, right? So I'm going to talk about the requirements of the personal statement. So one of the blurbs in the references says, use the space provided to answer questions 1 and 2. Personal statements should be clear, a concise essay addressing the areas listed on the application form. So I think a big takeaway from that blurb is, one, that it doesn't tell you a whole lot. It kind of just gives you general guidance of what to do. Something else that I haven't really heard mentioned a whole lot is that word essay, right? So when I've been reading through some of your guys' inputs for the personal statement, I'm seeing a lot of grammar, format, and consistency things that don't really speak to an essay format. Okay, so, and I'll get to that here in a second. Another reason why this is so difficult is because it's limited to 200 and 250 words, right? We talked about the why, and the why is one of 3 topics you need to discuss under 250 words. That is super difficult to get everything across, articulate your passion, your drive, everything about you that you want to tell the board in 250 words. So that's why I think the tweaking happens so much, is because trying to get everything you want to say out in such limited space. Now going back to the grammar, format, consistency. So some of the things I noticed in the write-ups was you would have a paragraph in paragraph format, and then the next one would be bulletized. I saw some exclamation points, things like that don't necessarily meet the essay kind of format. But at the same time, if that's how you want to do it, that's how you want to do it until you get feedback that says otherwise. The biggest thing I would say for that is consistency, right? If you're going to do something once, keep it consistent. This is for the entire package, but but really importantly for the personal statement, be consistent with the word healthcare administrator, right? Do you put a space between health and care? Do you capitalize healthcare and administrator? Be consistent in what you say. What I ended up doing was I used healthcare administrator one time, and then I used HCA after that, because HCA is only one word, and healthcare administrator is 2 words. So that helped me with a few words to stay under 250. Okay, so now we'll get into the reason, or into the topics of the personal statement. So reason applying for commissioning. This is your why. And I'm not going to go too much in depth because the topic last week was awesome. I watched it earlier to refresh for my presentation, and Chief Macaulay and Ted Abreu covered so much of the why. If you guys haven't had a chance to go watch it, you have to watch that, and that really helped you develop your why for the personal statement. Next section is personal and professional goals. So what do you desire to accomplish, right? What goals do you have for yourself that you cannot meet without the commission? So you want to make these clear to the board. And again, staying within the 250 words. And the next topic is strengths / personal characteristics you possess, which will contribute to success in the program which you are applying. This one's kind of tough as well, because when we think of strength and personal characteristics, right? And this is in some of the examples that I've seen in the turned in personal statements, I saw a list almost of attributes that you all are talking about yourselves. And those attributes are great and they're probably true, but those don't reveal anything about how that will contribute to the MSC community. So if you're saying that you're a driven sailor, you're motivated, this is your passion, you have great leadership experience, that's great and all, but everybody else who's applying is saying those same things about themselves. What is personal to you, right, that is attributable to those characteristics? Okay, so if you're driven, well, why are you driven? If you're passionate, why are you passionate? If you're a great leader, how are you a great leader? List a personal example in there to show the board what you've gone through and how you've come out of that a better leader. There's also a bullet that says address any other relevant information or substantial accomplishments not already covered. So with the space of 250 words, right, you already have to cover a lot of information. My recommendation for this would be to utilize other portions of the application to accomplish this, right? Unless it just absolutely will not fit whatever you have to say in any other portion. So an example would be duty assignment history. For duty assignment history, right, I didn't just list that I was an LCAC navigator at ACU 5, right? I said I was departmental LPO / LCAC navigator ACU 5. Now, that tells the board, right, if they pay attention to my application, that lets me speak more to the board without having to take up the 250 words. The extracurricular activities portion, also a great opportunity there for you to really, you have a couple lines in each block for that section. You can kind of spell out what you've been doing that goes under that extracurricular activities block. So I would highly recommend focusing on the first 3 bullets and staying under the 250 words. And the next section we're going to cover is the statement of age. When I was going through your submission to the personal statements, I think I only saw one submission that actually had that portion listed, right? There's a note that says that this portion does not count against your 250 word motivation statement, so don't worry about that. But make sure you calculate your age and follow the directions there. One thing I will say is that second sentence where it says my projected date of graduation, that is not for your personal degree that you're working on to qualify for the direct accession program, right? When your application is at the board, they're already assuming that you've already met all your requirements. So if I'm not mistaken, that portion is specifically for the training route, and the HM1 Tegel, who's was selected for training, may have more to say for that portion. Okay, so I've covered kind of the factual points, right, of the personal statement. I will go into a little bit about my personal statement, right? I told you guys about my history. I was a first class EP sailor, but never made chief. And this came up during the why lesson last week. You do not mention, right? They told you do not mention going for chief or officer. Your your statement to the board should reflect your 100% commitment to this process, right? When I was working on my MHA, I made sure I didn't have, my MHA, if I didn't get picked up for this program, that MHA would almost be useless to me, right? It had nothing to do with my enlisted career. I had, as an air crewman, I had no healthcare experience other than a two-week HCA indoc at Balboa Hospital in San Diego. I had no experience. So that MHA degree wouldn't do a whole lot for me until after I got out of the Navy as an enlisted sailor. Just make sure that you are all in for this, right? Because the board can tell. The board will be able to read through your personal statement and see if you're all in. And I was all in. I had made my mind up that, this is what I want to do. I'm either retiring as a first class because I'm not getting picked up, or I'm getting commissioned. And that's what happened with my commission. So I didn't talk about not making chief. I did bring up my passion for healthcare because of my kids with autism. Again, I only had a few short sentences to be able to get all that across to the board, but that was the big piece of my why, right? I was dedicated to helping other sailors deal with the similar situations possibly that I dealt with, with kids with autism. And 13 years ago when my son was diagnosed, there was not a lot of resources like there are today. So there's a lot of struggles for me and my family. And I tried to get that across to the board. Another issue that was brought up briefly in the last why lesson, but not as much as I hoped, was that the why portion is not just for the application. The why portion has a lot to do with your interview process and has a lot to do with your relationship with somebody who's going to be writing your letter of recommendation, right? Because they're going to ask you at the interview, why do you want to do this? Why, right? Why do you want to be an MSc? Why do you want to be an HCA or a PA? And you have to be able to not only articulate why you want to do all those things, but they're going to be able to tell if you're not being sincere. So that's why you cannot copy and paste. You cannot take from other people's experiences and hope the board buys it, because you don't have to talk to them, because it will come up. It will come up. That's one of the first questions that you're asked, right? When I was doing my board, I saw a panel of six or seven officers, right? It was the DFA for Balboa. It was multiple captains. And I had to tell them straight up, why do I want to do this? And I might have brought up the chief thing, I think, just to kind of tell them the struggles that I've been dealing with. But that was more to get the point across that the struggles I face and how I've overcome them, instead of saying, well, I can't make chief, so let me find something else to do. So, but I knew that I wouldn't be able to articulate all that in my personal statements. That's why I didn't include it. So I think that's the biggest reason why you don't want to include things that may make the board have some doubt into your package and your motivation for doing this. And I think that's it. I think that's all I got. I'll be happy to stand by for questions once we're done with the other portion of the lesson.
Thank you so much, JG Katsov. That's amazing. I think that's a very refreshing way to look at the personal statement. And you are correct. The why is not only for the application, it's throughout your process, the interview process. I'm just very curious. I know I said at the very end, we're gonna hold on to Q&A, but you said you're an air crewman. So I can already see this, because I sat through as a recorder sometimes for these appraisals. What did that question come up? Why did you not go the pilot route or the NFO route or the SWO route? Did that ever come up? Because this is definitely out of your element. And in our academy alone, there's a lot of non-HMs. There's PSs, YNs. There's actually, I think, an air crewman as well in the group, and LS. So what would be what was the question, and how did you kind of navigate that question?
Okay, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point. So that did come up, right? And I think it initially came up because of the way I answered certain questions was, why do you want to commission? And if I think when I first started out, I kind of gave generic answers. Well, I want to lead sailors. I want to have a bigger impact on the Navy. Those are very generic statements. So the next question was, okay, that's great, but why do you want to be an MSc, or why do you want to be an HCA? Because you could be a pilot, you could be a SWO, you could be an LDO, you could be a number of different apply for a number of different commissioning programs. So why MSc? And that really got me thinking, and that's really what helped tweak my personal statement. So I really had to articulate better, again, with my family issues that I've experienced. I also brought up that although I was out of the healthcare community, right, I networked a bunch. You have to network. For some of you all that are not in the community, you have to network. You have to meet with MSCs and with the subspecialty you're going for. And I can tell you guys that I connected so much better. A lieutenant mentor and a head lieutenant commander mentor. I connected more to them in 30 minutes speaking to them than I have to a lot of people that I worked with for years, right? Because it's a different community, right? Our mindsets, my mindset clicked, right? Because we want to, we're shaping the Navy in a certain way. So it took me a while, right? I applied 2 times, and the first time I didn't get selected, but the second time I got picked up, and all those questions that make you think help tweak your statement.
Very nice. Like, thank you. I just wanted to, because we have a lot of non-HMs on here, so I wanted them to hear that directly from you. And you applied twice. So that's pretty amazing. Thank you for sharing your story. And I'm pretty sure we will have some questions here in the Q&A in a little bit. But we'll transition over to the same page. So if you look at the OpNav application, right, it's on the same page, and it talks about the Navy core values. A lot of people kind of ignore this and just think like, the board's not going to focus on this too much. I'm going to tell you right now, just talking to previous mentors, current mentors that sat the board looks at everything. Let me just put it that way. They have a way to look at everything, especially when it's neck to neck, and you're just both amazing. You're like best thing. Both of you are best things since sliced bread. Now they're going to look at, okay, what makes this one person not the best thing since sliced bread? Like, is it their grammatical errors? Is it their personal statement? Then they start to nitpick. So I want to make sure that we included this too in this session, because last year we didn't touch on the Navy core values, and then one senior officer was like, hey, you might want to include the Navy core values in your mentorship program as well, because we definitely want to teach this to our future MSc officers. And if you don't know too, this is heavily on every board precepts. So if you don't know what board precepts are, we're going to talk about that in our next few lectures in a couple months from now. But on there, it's heavily emphasized from the CNO level that every officer and chief that we select reflects the Navy core values. So again, in addition to the 250 words that you are given, the Navy core values is an extension of that. So that's why I said in the comment, don't jam pack everything into personal statement. Kind of leave some and spread the love in your OpNav application. I think this is one of those good statements. So we have our ensign select here today. It's HM1 Tegel, who is currently at the Army Baylor training program. So without further ado, HM1, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. I am HM1 Tegel. I'm ensign select for Army Baylor. I'm going to be reporting to San Antonio in June. Timelines are still extremely vague other than that. So commissioning should happen in the next few months before I am due to report at Baylor. I did want to cover today the Navy core values. So as Lieutenant Abreu was saying and Lieutenant JG Katsov was saying, these are really important because it's your objective way of being able to say why you are going to be a good option for them to select as an MSc. So jump in here. I wanted to cover the application prompt. So like Lieutenant JG Katsov said, a lot of times people may skip over that and just start writing and then kind of miss what the prompt is saying. So we want to make sure we know what it's asking us so we can answer it appropriately. We want to define what core values are. There are different ways to define it. There's your average dictionary definition, and then there's your personal definition. And then there's maybe an application that you've seen within your career. So you want to make sure that you can combine all of those into your statement. We're going to talk about how to make this statement personal to you and then cover any questions you might have. So this is the application prompt. It says in your package, discuss what the Navy core values, honor, courage, and commitment mean to you and how you think they will apply to you as an officer in the U.S. Navy. All right, so now that we know the question, let's define honor, courage, and commitment. All right, so like I said, there's different ways for us to define it. We can use the Navy's definition or the Webster definition, and each applicant will have their own way of defining it. So we're going to talk about that. What does honor, courage, and commitment mean to you, and how have those values shaped you as a person, or how have you used them in your career? That's going to be valuable in defining honor, courage, and commitment. And also, how are you going to use honor, courage, and commitment as a medical service corps officer? Okay, so let's start off with honor here. The Navy Charter, this is where I pulled my information from, and I have the links at the end if you wanted to go back through and read it. The Navy Charter says, honor is to abide by an uncompromising code of integrity, taking full responsibility for my actions and keeping my word. So that's the crux of it right there. There's some further bullets down there. It is listed out differently in the charter, but that's the main point there. Webster Dictionary states, it's a keen sense of ethical conduct or integrity. My definition of honor, something that I can use either that I've seen in my service or my own way of defining it, is conducting yourself to the highest standards of excellence while exercising humility, treating fellow shipmates with mutual respect, no matter their rank, and ensuring these ideals are cultivated within my sphere of influence. So that's like an example of how I would define honor and how I would mold that into my statement. Moving on to courage here, the Navy Charter says, courage is a value that gives me moral and mental strength to do what is right with confidence and resolution, even in the face of temptation or adversity. I think this is a great way to define courage. A lot of times people will say it's doing the right thing when no one is looking. The Webster Dictionary here says the ability to do something you know is difficult or dangerous. And my interpretation was having confidence, candor, and fearlessness in the face of adversity. So again, you can kind of see how we're taking the definition from the Navy, the Webster Dictionary, and then using that to forge our own interpretation of what these mean to us. Lastly, we have commitment. The Navy Charter says the day-to-day duty of every man and woman in the Department of the Navy is to join together as a team to improve quality of work, our people, and ourselves. The Webster Dictionary says, a promise to be loyal to something or someone, an attitude of someone who works very hard to do or support something. And lastly, my interpretation is commitment unifies the former traits. All efforts are in vain without commitment to the mission, my shipmates, or my country. So how can we make this our personal statement, and how can we make this more personal in general? Reflect on your career. What you've seen in terms of honor, courage, and commitment while you've been serving, and how can you include that into your statement? I think making this personal is also really important because it shows that you can not only understand what honor, courage, and commitment is, but apply it to your statement. So how can we weave that experience into your interpretation of the statement? How do you plan to bring your enlisted core values into the officer community? And how, lastly, can you take those values and apply them to the medical service corps? All right. So here's an example. This was actually, I'm not going to give you my whole statement, but this was one of my statements for courage. So again, courage means to have confidence, candor, and fearlessness in the face of adversity. That's me defining what courage means. Having the courage to do it right, especially when it's unpopular, is an attribute that I have personally had to use throughout my career. Again, that's me. Finally, as a naval officer, I will undoubtedly be faced with difficult. Finally, that's me. How am I going to apply courage when I become an officer if I'm selected? All right. So again, homework here, review the Navy Core Values Charter. I put the link in here. Research alternative dictionary definitions. Those were just Webster definitions, but you might be able to find a different resource to give you another perspective of that. And then I did have an exercise sheet. It was pretty simple. I didn't actually end up including it, but it was just on a Word document having you write down your own definition, and then looking it up and kind of seeing how does that actually align with, maybe what's in the dictionary versus what's in the charter. This is a disclaimer. I should have probably put this at the front, but this is your core value statement. This is my approach. This was my approach and how I wrote my statement. If you think of a better way to do it, that's your statement. So this is just one perspective. So you can kind of either mold this into your own or do it in a completely separate way. So that's just my disclaimer. Anyone have questions?
Awesome. H1, that is one of the best, I think, presentations for Navy core values. You just I love how both you and JG Katsov broke down the prompts and kind of guided everybody on how to write it. And a lot of people tend to ignore that. So for those of you that are here today, hopefully both of those presentations had the same approach. What is the question in front of me? Read the question, just like what we tell our sailors when they're taking the advancement exam. Read the question, because we tend to go in a tangent sometimes. One of the things that I saw in the personal statements and in some of the whys, you go round and around and about, and you already tell these officers. Remember, these are senior officers that have been in your shoes at one point and have a lot of experience. There's no need to regurgitate the information and tell them what HCAs do, what PAs do, or what they should do, right? You should be telling them what will you do once you're in their shoes, right? So that's one thing that I want to add on for both Navy core values and the personal statement is avoid the cookie cutter statement like we already talked about. Avoid the telling them like HCAs are this is what HCAs do, blah, 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 blah. It's like, I already know that. I'm an HCA. What are you going to do, right, to help the HCA community? And third, and this is one thing that is so minor, but made a huge impact, is putting the words will, W-I-L-L. And let me tell you why, and then we'll get into the question and answer. It might seem very minute, right? Because it's all about the future, right? And one of my mentors, Commander Mo Taylor, I say this in almost every video that I made last year. He was truly, truly what changed my all my officer application. I submitted multiple times. And he said, when you say will, that means you're not doing that right now or you don't see it. I'm using an example. If you say, I'm just going to use an example. I will make the medical service corps better. So how do you interpret that? If I was a senior officer and read that statement, I'm going to take offense to that and say, oh, so we're not better because you're going to make us better, right? And we have all these officers who are part of high reliability organizations, part of process improvement groups. What are you saying, right? And I didn't even think about that. And I look at all my applications, all of them have will make, will do this, right? So I asked him, well, what do I do? How do I change that? Well, change your tone and just say, I will continue, right? There's a will, but you're adding the word continue on there. I will continue to make the Navy excellent or Navy medicine excellent. So just a small thing. And it made me read. That's how I review y'all's personal statement. And the why statements is when there's a will there, I try to X that out so that you can get into the mindset of how you're going to approach it and continue on the legacy. But that's what you're trying to tell the board. So I'm gonna get off my soapbox there. We'll open up the floor to the question and answer portion now. Anyone from the group, please feel free to type in the Q&A portion or the chat box or raise your hand. Okay, so I don't know your rank, so I apologize. Geraldine Yao, go ahead, unmute yourself and ask the question.
Hi, my name is HM1 Yao. I do have a question in regards to the personal statement. I recently did an appointment with my commanding officer about the CEO's endorsement, and she had mentioned to me that I had listed my accomplishments on there as, for example, Sailor of the Year. She did mention to me that she wanted to mention it in her CEO's endorsement. That way it would give me more room to talk about myself on my personal statement. Would that work?
Mr. Katsov, do you want to take this question, sir?
Sure. Let me get my camera turned on. Yeah, that will absolutely work, right? A lot of all of your awards, your evals are included in the application. They will see that. Your sailor year is going to be probably at the top of your eval, right? Probably opening statement, my sailor of the year, my number, whatever, right? They're going to see it. So you don't have to repeat yourself and waste that space. And then if she makes it a point to include it in her write-up, that's even better, because now it's not just a cookie cutter statement that a CO threw together or that they copied from somebody else to give to the board. Because COs, they write these probably all the time. So if the CO is telling you she wants to use that, yeah, I think absolutely she should use that, and you use the space to better articulate what you're trying to say in your personal statement.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you for the question, HM1. Anyone else, please raise your hand or type in the chat box if you're shy.
I did want to
Very good
mention.
presentation.
I did want to mention Lieutenant JG Katsov in his presentation mentioned that age statement. That graduation piece, I went back and I actually looked at my package to see what I put in there, because I vaguely remember writing that out. But I actually did put, as a training applicant, my graduation date for Army Baylor. But I think, as I was thinking about that question, I think it's more for the PA students, because they're the ones that have to wait for their full commissioning. That's just a thought. I'm not sure. For HCA training, you'll commission before school. So maybe Lieutenant Abreu has a take on that as well, but that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, that's more mainly for the ones that won't commission until after school, such as PA. That's a very good point to bring up, right? The devil's in the details. Yes, because if you are an HCA training route, you'll go to school already as an ensign. However, as a PA, you're not commissioned technically yet till after the PA program and everything. So yeah, that's a very good point to bring up. Are there any other questions, comments, concerns? Again, very good topics from both awesome officers in the group. This is why we open it up to the big Navy, because there's a lot of people that got selected that have their own flavors. And I just want to reiterate HM1 Tegel's disclaimer. These are our stories, and we want to share them to you in hopes that this would help as well, right? At the end of the day, it still needs to sound like you. Like, I'm going to read some names: Melissa Timlin, Geraldine Yao, Marika Corrigan. It has to sound like you. So please avoid the whole, like, can I take a look at your package? Can I see? It doesn't do you any good, but tend to plagiarize it. I'm not going to lie to you. That's what's going to happen. And it's not going to sound like you, and it's going to be evident, because what you tell in an interview appraisal, I look at that statement, it's like, that's not what you said here. I like what you said better. Now put it here. Right. So those are my parting words on that one. HM1 Tegel, any parting words to the group, since we're not getting any questions? Any parting words?
No, just keep working on those statements, continue to revise. And if you have any questions, especially HCA training related, you can feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be going through everyone's statements too. It's been a busy week for me as well.
Awesome. Mr. Katsov?
Yeah, just kind of back to your point, LT, was that when you're sitting at the interview board, right, they have your package in front of them. So they're going to look at that personal statement, and they're going to ask questions from that personal statement. So if it's cookie cutter, if it's plagiarized, they're going to be able to tell. And that's the last place you want to be, staring in the face of a captain and telling him or her, trying to make something up. So yeah, absolutely. Also, I kind of started on the MSCIPP Facebook page. If you guys want to reach out to me as non-corpsman, feel free to do so on the page, or shoot me a private message on Facebook or through the classroom. I'll be going through the statements as well, and focusing my replies to you based on what I presented here today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, gentlemen. I know y'all are very busy as well, and as well as the individuals that took their time today. I know it's a Friday, and instead of partying, you're here putting in work and towards your application. And to answer your question, Mr. Corey Buchanan, yes, we will be posting this. I actually am a little behind with the posting because I owe this to the MSCIPP Facebook group as well. But you guys are getting this firsthand. I want to give this opportunity to the Academy students to ask questions live. Please, please, please keep the questions coming. And like I said, be patient with us. We are trying our best to keep up with this as well, along with our primary jobs too. You guys are doing amazing. You're doing the right thing just by seeking help and humbling yourselves. I know you all amazing already as it is, but we just need to tweak it a little bit more. And hopefully this academy is helping you out. Without further ado, we are done. 45 minutes, right on the dot. Thank you so much, everybody.